Hello guys, welcome back to Cafe Bagheri. Today I'm going to show you how to make a beautiful rustic French apple tart. This is one of our family's favorite desserts, and I'm sure it's going to become your family's favorite. So stick around, I'm going to show you how to make this beauty. You're going to love it. So this is a traditional pie crust that in fact can be used for your all kinds of pies, as well as this French apple tart. Traditional, we're going to use our 2 cups of all-purpose flour, and for this recipe we're using a food processor with a steel blade. You can use it by hand if you don't have this, but it works much better to use a food processor. So we got 2 cups of all-purpose flour going in here. We are going to add to this our kosher salt. Got kosher salt here. We have our sugar in the flour mixture. And so we're going to put the lid back on this thing and pulse this 4 or 5 times to make sure flour, salt, and sugar are mixed. To that, we're going to open the hatch and add our cold butter. Like any pie crust, the cold butter is what brings this together, and some cold water on top of that. The butter has to be as cold as possible, so we're holding it in the refrigerator. Last minute, I'm going to bring it out, cut up the butter into manageable pieces, like pieces about 1 inch or 1/4 or 1/2 inch. These are little cubes of butter, okay, right here. So we're going to put all the butter in piece by piece, and for 1/3 or 1/4 of it, we do 4 or 5 pulses like that. Put another 1/3 of the butter in there, do another 4 or 5 pulses, put the rest in there. So now you do another 6 or 7 pulses. What I do in order to make sure all the flour ends up down in here, you can either open it and use a spatula to clean the flour and make sure they're down back in the mix, or just shake your food processor like that. So now your cold butter, your flour, salt, and sugar has been mixed. If you look down, you will see your butter has absorbed the dry ingredients. You have pea-sized pieces in there. That means you're ready to start adding your cold water, which is what brings it together and makes your dough. Run the motor in high speed, okay? And start adding your water in a slow drizzle. What happens is the dough is going to start coming together. Once it does that, it will separate from the outside wall and start gathering around the blade in the middle. So once the dough has come together and separates from the outer wall, and it's now in the center around the blade core, we just stop processing and we are ready to dump the dough out. Open the food processor. We get some flour on this surface, right? So the plan is to get the dough out of the machine and gather it in a ball, and then put it in the fridge for at least 1 hour. So what we're going to do now, we're going to get our dough blade and bring this together. You need to add more flour. So this is basically your pie crust. Just massage that into a little ball, not too much. This is now ready to be put in the refrigerator for an hour. All right, we've had our dough, our crust dough for the French Apple Tart chilling for over an hour right now. What we're gonna do is we're gonna slice our Granny Smith apples so we can lay them down on the crust and start baking our French Apple Tart. Depending on how much overlap you want for the apples on your final tart, you need about 2 to 4 good-sized Granny Smith apples, okay? The way I go about this, I'm going to slice the apples right in the middle, and we use a good old, like a melon baller to core the apple. Just take out the seeds and the center pod this way. Good news is you don't have to peel the apple because having the skin on the apple kind of adds to your presentation. I'm taking out these center parts, these 2 pieces, to get any stem and pieces that are left on the apple. All you want is the flesh and the skin. So we're going to start. The end pieces on both ends are not used. I usually cut those out in a way to begin with. What would you say, Alex? This is about 1/8 of an inch. I would say 2 millimeters. Yeah, there you go. Now, one thing that is notable, you can do this tart with pears. You can do it with plums in season, different kinds of the red, kind of purple, dark plums, pears, Granny Smith apples. If you do apples, Granny Smiths are the best because they have that tart kind of sour taste that goes well once it gets caramelized out of the oven. It's the best apple for this particular dessert. Okay, so we're done with these. I'm gonna throw these away too. Our apples are sliced and ready. Like I said, we need some acid. Lemon or lime will do. I have some fresh sliced lime here. I'll just use a mixture of lemon and lime because I happen to have both here. Okay, so I'm going to put all this away and start working the dough. We will put some flour on the board on our work surface and start working the dough. Now this dough has been chilling for over an hour and it's hard, as you can see. The Julia Childs technique of working this dough is the best. That was one of the first videos I saw of the old lady. So here's what we do. We're gonna get our rolling pin. Basically, the best way to get this guy to let go is to beat it, just like that. So we keep turning it. Oh, we're gonna do this dough. Remember Julia Childs used to do that? So you beat it a few times and then you turn it. It's gonna be messy. Okay. Now, let me tell you something about the shape of this tart's dough. You can get fancy and make it a perfect circle, a perfect square, and use your slices of apple or whatever fruit you're using to decorate it in nice fancy ways. Or you just basically spread it out like an oval with imperfections and jagged edges. And I think that helps the French country rustic look of this dessert, and that's what I've always gone with. So right here, you just roll with your elbow right here. With your, make sure you get Get about 1/4 of an inch. Like I said, at this point, you could also, another way is if you want to serve these as individual tarts, you get a shape cutter and do circles or squares for individual size tarts, right? But this one is just the oval that we're doing, and we're going to serve it. So this full portion, this big tart will serve 8 to 10 people as dessert, but you can make individual size ones for 1 to 2 people each. There you go. So what we're doing, this is our cookie sheet that we're going to put a parchment paper on right here. And then we lift the rolled out crust and put it here. What we're going to do is we're going to put the fruit down, put the apple down. You can do this part any way you want. So this is my technique. You can go in rows, and then later when you use your pizza cutter, which is what I use, after it comes out of the oven, before serving you're going to slice it, right, to serve it. You can put rows of overlapping apple slices like that so that you can cut between them, or you just go around. We're going to do it in rows like that. And I would keep the smaller ones for the end. If I go real close like that here, it makes for a thicker tart and more fruit, if you will. But I can, but you get crispier tart if you do not have as much overlap, because the thickness of the apple is not as much. So I opt for going a little more spread like this. Look, and then I get one of these little ones, like find the little one, and sometimes I just cut the end piece and go like this. See that end piece there? Okay, so we've laid down all the apples. A couple of things. These aisles you see between the rows of apples, that's where we intend to cut the tart when we are serving it. If you have big appetite, one of these rows will be your share. If not, we cut it this way, and each person gets about that much, okay? That's why we say 8 to 10 people for this whole tart. Now, another thing, I left the skins on. When it comes out of the oven, you will see the skins turn a little dark, and they add to the presentation. That's why we don't want to skin the apple, okay? So next thing we do, we're going to dot it with some butter. Butter has to be the coldest possible, so it's still in the fridge. We're going to cut our butter into pea-sized little dots that we're going to put on the tart. So we have our butter cut up here. Now we're going to dot it. So we basically go every couple of square inch or a square inch, we'll get one of these little dots. There's no rhyme or reason to it. The oven just beat, ready. The idea is the butter will melt and kind of spread, add to the nutty flavor, buttery flavor, and it will help the tart brown. Now the final touch on this guy is going to be the 1/2 cup sugar that we're going to sprinkle over the apples and the butter and everything. That helps giving you that golden rustic color and the crust that you need on the top of this. This is regular cane sugar. Don't use turbinado or the kind of sugar that doesn't melt. You want this to melt and caramelize all over. So this guy's ready to go in the oven We have oven preheated at 400 degrees. This goes between 45 minutes to an hour. If you have convection oven, use that. Or what you have to do is you go for 20-25 minutes and then turn it halfway. That should do the trick, okay? One thing not to be alarmed about, towards the end you will see the edges here will start getting darker and they look like they're burning, but they're not. It's just the sugar caramelizing, and the edges are the best part of this tart. When you taste it, you'll agree with me. So we're gonna stick this in the oven and go for 45 minutes initially, and we'll see what we get. And then we'll work it from there.
Would you rather give up grilling or give up baking?
I would give up grilling.
Why?
Because baking is so much more versatile, and baking includes desserts. So we've been going for 45 minutes at 400 degrees. We said it's 45 minutes to an hour, right? Look at this. I would say we need another 5 minutes to get a richer, darker, rustic color, but it's pretty much done, okay? So what we're going to do, we're going to make a mixture of fruit jelly, either apricot or apple. I have apple today, and some sort of liqueur, brandy. You can use Grand Marnier or any kind of orange liqueur, or you can use regular brandy or apple flavored brandy. And we mix it, we heat it up a little bit in the microwave. As soon as your final tart gets out of the oven, we brush that mixture of fruit jelly and brandy on the tart to give it the glaze we want, the shiny glaze, and then let it cool down. So it's been 45 minutes and an extra 5 minutes. So the timing was 45 minutes to an hour. We think based on the color and the look of the tart, it's ready now. Check it out. This is what it should look like. Now, if you see some dark color around the edges, it looks like it's burning, don't worry, that's just the sugar caramelizing. It's gonna taste great. This is what the guy looks like now. So what we're gonna do is, we're going to, in order not to burn our board, I'm gonna put this rack here. While this is hot and out of the oven, we're going to apply the mixture of fruit jelly and liqueur. Look at this. You hear the sizzling? So we're done with that. Now, before we cut into this, we're gonna slide it off with the paper onto our rack to help it cool. I would say between 5 to 10 minutes before you slide it back on the board and cut it to be served. I think our apple tart now is cool enough for us to start cutting and enjoying it. Right here, we're gonna just pull this rack out from under it. You can keep the paper under it while you're cutting. No problem there. I'm using a standard pizza cutter. You can use a knife. So you can go like this with a knife, but pizza cutter usually works real well. Look at that. Like I said earlier, you just go between these rows. Here you go. So again, there's gonna be some crumbles here and there, but that just helps the rustic look of the tart. Let's go across like that. Check this out. Well, there you have it. The good thing about this apple tart is when you put it in the fridge and serve it the next day or later that day, cooled apple tart is even better with your coffee, with your hot coffee or hot tea. Makes a great afternoon snack. Little pieces like that make a great addition to your tea time. So great dessert. There you have it, guys. Our French apple tart, one of our family's favorite desserts. Don't forget a scoop of vanilla ice cream with this. It's wonderful. You can sometimes sprinkle a little cinnamon on it at the end before it goes in the oven. I didn't include that in the procedure that I showed you, but some people like cinnamon. It goes well with this tart. Thank you for watching. The recipe will be in the YouTube description. Please subscribe if you haven't already. Hit that bell icon so we can keep in touch. And I hope to see you right here at Cafe Bagheri very soon.